Okay, everybody, we're live.
All right, good evening. Mary Jo, can you call the roll, please?
Ron Van Kirk
Here.
for the finance. Kathy Pucci. Oh, Kathy. Kathy, you're muted. Kathy Pucci for the roll. Hello, Kathy. Okay, I'll come back. Andy Selhertz.
Here.
Hello, Kathy. Oh, let me give her a text. Kathy. Kathy? I took the roll. Hi, Kathy. Oh, Kathy, I took the roll for finance. Kathy, can you hear me? Hold on, I'm texting.
I'm here. I'm having trouble with my sound.
Okay, all right, I won't send this text then. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Ron possibly was not going to be here, or he's in and out. So I'm running the meeting this evening. First item on the agenda for us tonight is to approve the minutes of the January 25th, 2021 finance meeting. Any corrections,
May I be recognized?
please? Yes.
Just a minor correction, fifth paragraph under where it starts Finance Director Raguse, ninth line towards the left, it just, instead of from, it should be for, so that the request for the refund, it should read. And I'll make a
Okay.
motion that we approve as amended.
Second.
To approve the minutes as amended, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes,
Andy Selhertz.
Yes. With regards to financial matters, we have a notification, 100,000, we're receiving $100,000 from the state of Ohio going towards the City of Brooklyn Trail Project. In old legislation, old business, we have nothing in regards to financial. With new business, we have Ordinance 2021-7. It's on the first reading. It's repealing section 135.05 of the Brooklyn Codified Ordinances, petty cash funds. And that goes to section 135.05 is petty cash funds for various city operating departments will be established as Recreation Center 150, Service Director 200, Senior Center 100, Police Department 200, Fire Department 200. And that section's getting repealed, and it's going to be replaced a little bit later by Resolution 2021-5. We have Resolution 2020. Any questions on that? We have
No.
Resolution 2021-1. It's going to be a first reading, request suspension of an adoption. It's authorizing all actions necessary to accept the Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council NOPEX 2020 Energized Community Grant. Any questions? Motion to suspend the rules and approve by council.
Second.
To recommend the council adopt by suspension of rules, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
yes,
Andy Selhertz.
Yes. Third item in the new business, is Resolution 2021-2. It's just on first reading, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Simvey LLC to provide information technology professional services to the city of Brooklyn. It's a monthly service fee of $7,916.50.
Mr. Chair, can I,
Go ahead, Mayor. If
give
I
some
answer my question.
specific- Okay,
Go ahead.
sorry. Just let me go back on the NOPAC. If you recall, this is something that they've been giving out for a couple of years now. This year, we will take a capital item out of the fire station, either HVAC or LED lighting, and apply it towards that. As far as the next contract that Andy just spoke about, Simvey. So as you recall, we have used Bailey Communications for a long time, up until last year, when a lot of their staff had left. We had started to have some issues. We've filled that gap with ETC for a couple months, just on a month-to-month basis. Now, I've been exploring what to do as far as our technology needs going forward. Simvey is a company where some of the staff from Bailey's went to, some of the staff that we heavily relied on. And as you can recall, when we were under Bailey's, we had two separate contracts. We had a contract for our computers, software, everything on that end, and then we had a contract for our phone service. So our one contract was about $53,000, and then our phone contract was $17,000. This includes the entire contract. A total would have been $70,040 for that entire contract with Bailey's if you lumped it in. As you can see, this is $94,000, still an increase from what we're getting paid. I think because we were one of Bailey's first clients, we never really saw huge increases. I went out to my colleagues and I started to do some surveys on this particular thing, and it's all over the board between cities. Just to give you an example, Brecksville, three people in-house, they spend about $200,000 on payroll. Westlake has all in-house, they spend about $300,000. Shakers in-house. Maple Heights is $36,000 a year. They use Chagrin Valley. It's mostly for the police end. Strongsville's in-house. They spend $80,000 per year, plus that does not include outside vendors. Their total IT budget is $1.3 million a year. Brook Park currently is outsourcing at $50,000 a year. And then South Euclid has a fee of $25,000 a year, plus as needed things depending on what comes up. So as you can see, we range from a full spectrum, and you can spend a lot of money on this. This is something that is very important, obviously, as IT continues to be such a vital part of our lives. We are confident moving towards with Simvey and going back to some of the people at Bailey's who really understood how this process worked. And if you have any specific questions that I did not cover, please don't hesitate to ask them now. This is only on first reading.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. They answered most of my questions. Is this something that was put out to bid, or is this a new company that was started by the guys that are with Bailey, or how do we come across that?
Yes, it's a new company. So yeah, I was exploring going out to bid. I had talked to Joe Magri about that, who runs IT for Olmsted Falls, and he's on our civil service and a resident. I obviously value his opinion on that. I also talked to Paul Kumar in Bay Village, who was having the same issues, used Bailey's for a number of years. And they were in the same predicament, weren't getting as quality of service as they used to be getting. And Paul explained to me that he occasionally was going out and putting out an RFQ for the service, and he would get no responses. And the only thing he would get is Bailey's back. I did not want to be put into that situation. I'm comfortable with moving forward with Simvey, knowing the staff that I'm going to be getting. And so I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
May I be recognized?
Go ahead. Yes.
I just have one question. So will Christopher, is he with the new company?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Any other questions? All righty, on to the next item. Resolution 2021-3. It's on first reading, but also by administration. It's being requested for suspension and adoption. Authorizing the mayor of the city of Brooklyn, Ohio to enter into a contract with the AFSCME Ohio Council 8, AFL-CIO Local 3218 clerical employees for a 3-year term beginning 2021. So this is just another contract in a series of contracts that have been negotiated lately. Any,
Mr. Chair, this is Kevin Butler.
go ahead, please.
Council members, you received my digest on this particular agreement that's before you. Glad to answer any additional questions you've got, whether here or if it's your preference in executive session, whether in this meeting or in a future meeting. But suffice it to say, I think we've provided a good overview of the substantive changes to the contract. Stand by it. Proud of the outcome of this one. Appreciate AFSCME's work with us on negotiating a fair agreement. And so, of course, we support your ratification of the contract, and if possible, this evening. Thanks.
May I be recognized?
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. And I'll let Mr. Butler decide if my question should be more appropriately addressed in executive session or not. I just wanted a little bit further clarification on the Appendix A, B, and C. I do recall the red circling that occurred, and it looks like we have one person left with the red circling. So I'll let you decide if it's appropriate for executive session or in this particular forum. I think I read that the 2 positions were adjusted prior to the 3%, and that was clerk of courts, I think, and building secretaries. And I was just a little bit confused at how it all played out between the 3 appendices, A, B, and C.
Sure. Appendix A is the main appendix that council ought to focus on. That's the wage schedule for years 1. For year 1. And that's really the primary wage schedule that you ought to look at. And by the way, I have no problem talking about this in open session. We did feel as if it were appropriate to make market-based equity adjustments for the clerk of court position and the building secretary position. That's just one person in each of those roles. After conducting our own research into what the market was bearing for those particular positions and the jobs that those 2 employees perform for the city. In one of those cases, the clerk of courts position, the increase was so dramatic that we were able to negotiate away from a 3% cost of living adjustment for that position in year 1. We thought that was appropriate, and AFSCME agreed. Not so with the building secretary position, where the equity increase was smaller, I think $1 an hour, as I recall. And so that person was entitled to the 3% in addition to that $1 an hour increase. The red circled rates are found in Appendix C. And I know it's a little bit out of order. It kind of goes Appendix A, Appendix C, Appendix B. But you're correct in saying that there's only one red circled employee. That's Joanne Haig. And she is entitled to a higher salary based on where she started in the union when the union was formed. And then Appendix B is it's a separate salary schedule for people who work up in a higher rated position from their lower level position. That's a rare occurrence. In fact, We're not certain that Appendix B is really going to apply ever during the life of this contract. But it is possible. And so there's a separate wage schedule for people who take on the higher responsibilities during the term of this contract. I hope that answers what Appendix A, B, and C do. Suffice it to say, Joanne would never work in any, she would never be entitled to any salaries in Appendix A or B because she's already red circled at Appendix C. And I would suggest to you that few, if none, of our employees in this union would really be working according to Appendix B because the opportunity to work up a classification is very, very rare in this particular unit. It's just not that, the jobs aren't that transferable.
So in, for Appendix A, then, what is shown here includes the adjustments for the 2 positions that were increased due, let's just say, to the market. And then, so that is reflected in the base and then extrapolated through the 3 years of the progression, correct?
That's correct. Yep. And Tom is shaking his head as well. I'm noticing that. And Tom worked these appendices, but and of course we double checked these and triple checked them, and the union checked them over. But yes, that's an accurate statement.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments?
Move to recommend the council adopt by emergency measure.
Second,
To recommend council adopt by emergency, Ron Van Kirk.
he stepped away just for a moment.
I'll come back to him. Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes. Ron might be away for a while.
Okay. I have a majority of your votes.
Okay. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is Resolution 2021-4, first reading and administration's requesting suspension and adoption, approving selection of Penzika Construction Company as best value construction manager at risk, and authorizing contract for pre-construction services and declaring an emergency.
Do you want me to take it away?
Go ahead.
Okay. I know I spoke to Ron and he mentioned doing this in committee of the whole, but everybody's on right now, so it makes sense just to move forward. I sent out a long email today. I wanted to send it out Friday, but things came up. And if you didn't get a chance to read it, basically Kevin Butler has been working on the contract right now. This is the preliminary pre-construction and selection of Penzika. I've been keeping city council up to date as far as applications go, and Penzika was selected when we finally interviewed our top 5. So I will introduce them now, or if there's any specific questions on the legislation, you can direct that to Kevin Butler. But I'd like to introduce Mark Penzika. He's a co-owner. He's on there. Chris Montgomery, who'd be the project manager. If there are any questions about the process so far, I would love to hear it. As you can see, that long email today talked about next steps. Getting the CMR on will help us really define the schedule from here and ensure that we're in a good place for the first step, which would be the rec center parking lot to allow for the space for the site to move forward. And I know you're probably very anxious to really, not saying that the owner's rep and the CMR are boring, but the fun part about this is the design. So seeing what the design looks like, and as I said in that, we'll be ready to go to council in about a month. And so hopefully the March 8th meeting for city council, or we could schedule something separate and just have a session fully on this and move forward. So Jason, did you want to add anything?
I'll just add that, I mean, we had a tremendous response to the RFQ. We had all of the top firms in Cleveland, or in the region, I should say, respond to it. So we were very pleased at the response and the turnout that we got. We ended up actually shortlisting 5 total firms and requested both a pricing and technical proposal from each. So as it's indicated in there, this is best value. So it's not strictly price. It's based on qualifications and pricing. And through that process, Panseca, with their experience in correctional facilities and work that both that they've done through Bowen's office and GPD, we're very confident that they're going to be a good team player in addition to this group. And as the mayor indicated, will help guide us into construction and through construction.
Mark, would you like to say anything?
Sorry, wrong button. Yes, I say, so I want to thank you for the opportunity, and we are extremely excited about being a team member here with everybody. The selection committee was great, and I'm really excited about bringing the experiences that we've been able to garner through our years of working on police stations and with municipalities and adding value to the team. We really value this relationship, and we want to get going and get kicked off and start showing what we can do.
May I be recognized? Thank you. I just have one general question, and that is exactly what is covered under the pre-construction fee?
So under the pre-con fee, we will do all of the pre-planning, pre-construction estimating. So we'll go through the various stages of design, schematic design development, and then the CD process. We'll do estimates along the way. We will meet on a regular basis with the design team and the ownership team, whoever that group is, and make sure that we're following through on the critical milestones during pre-construction to make sure that we're hitting the dates that we need to in order to start putting a shovel in the ground when the documents are ready. That's what our fee covers.
Thank you.
Anybody else with questions?
Mr. Chair and the council, can I just wanted to add to Mark's comment there too. I guess in addition to the cost estimating, they also provide constructability reviews throughout the process. So we're ensuring that, we're taking into consideration what will facilitate construction and sequencing as we try to make decisions on the layouts and different materials of the building. So it's, I don't want to shortchange Mark. You guys bring a lot to the table.
I appreciate that. I left that part out.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'll make a motion that we recommend adoption by emergency measure.
Second.
To recommend that council adopt by emergency measure, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes. Next item on our agenda is Resolution 2021-5. It's just on first reading, adopting the City of Brooklyn petty cash funds and change tills policy. And the one section is there will be petty cash funds for the various city operating departments to be established. Recreation Center 150, Service Director 200, Senior Center 100, Police and Fire Departments $200 each. There'll also be a change tills, Recreation Center with 700, Service/Building 200, Senior Center 200, and Mayor's Court for 200. And that resolution is on first reading. Any questions, comments?
Yeah, can I just ask a question real quick? I think the email came from Mr. Raguse, Is this just to clean up our wording between the ordinance and resolutions? Is that what this one dealt with?
Correct. Previously, it was all in codified ordinance, at least the petty cash one was. This is just to clean that up, make it from an ordinance to a resolution. The amount stayed the same, the practice stays the same. It's just a cleanup.
Okay, I was just double checking. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? All right. Last item from new business is resolution 2021-6. It's under first reading and by administration. They're also requesting suspension and adoption, authorizing the city to effectuate an agreement between Speedway LLC and Brooklyn Community Improvement Corporation for the purchase of certain real property known as 8519 Memphis Avenue, permanent parcel numbers 432-21-014, 015, 016, 017, and 018, and declaring an emergency. I don't know if Mr. Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Council members, we have discussed the city's interest in this particular property for some time now. We made the determination throughout the process that it would be wiser for the Community Improvement Corporation to hold title to this particular property rather than the city. There are some unique circumstances involving this particular property that make it more palatable for the CIC to hold title to it. Not the least of which is that the seller, Speedway, requires indemnification, which the city cannot by law provide. And we were unable to get around that particular provision. The CIC has recently met last Monday as part of its annual meeting, but also to address this particular docket item, and has agreed to enter into the purchase agreement that is attached to this resolution. The mayor would be the signer on behalf of the CIC as opposed to on behalf of the city, should council approve this agreement tonight. But what this agreement really does is it permits the city to spend the money on the CIC's behalf to purchase the property. This will, as you know, align this property with the Up to Bat property next door. And it won't be exactly titled common ownership, but the city will own Up to Bat and CIC will own Speedway, and together we can do things with those properties, make sure that they are restored to an appropriate state and not be kept in a state of disrepair as they are now. So we're excited about this, and we just need council support in order to essentially become the agent for CIC for this particular purchase, and to be able to transfer the funds to the seller when the time is appropriate. I'm happy to answer any specific questions about the agreement or about the legislation itself as well. Thanks.
Thank you.
May I be recognized?
Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Just a quick question in regards to this, and because we purchased so many parcels of property, but did we have this appraised? I recall that we did, but I just want to double check and make sure.
We did have that appraised.
Yeah, and Jeremy's on the line as well, and this falls within that appraisal.
Yeah,
And-
the issue has never been about price.
Yeah.
They had no issue with the appraisal price. It really came down to all of the environmental, legal issues that took so long on the project. I do want to add, since I'm already speaking, Jeremy did hear from the land bank today or yesterday, and they are expecting a pot of money to be released from the county for one more round of demolition, and this property and the Up to Bat property are part of that list. So we will, it looks like, have county money to supplement that demolition.
Very good. Thank you much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'll make a motion that council adopt the resolution by emergency.
Second.
Recommend council adopt this by emergency. Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
yes,
Andy Selhertz.
Yes. And that is for all the items on our agenda. Does the mayor or Mr. Raguse have any other items for finance?
I do not.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second,
To adjourn, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
yes.
Andy Selhertz.
yes.
Okay. Does anybody need a break or do you want to go right to committee of the whole?
Going straight.
fine. It's fine by me.
All right, Mary Jo, can you call the roll, please?
Ron Van Kirk,
Here.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Here.
Andy Selhertz,
Here.
Kathy Pucci,
Here,
Mary Belbeer,
Here.
Kevin Tansky,
Here.
Sue Grodick.
Here.
First item on the agenda is approval of the committee of the whole minutes of January 25th, 2021. Any corrections, amendments?
move to approve.
Second,
To approve the minutes, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes,
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
All righty, we've covered almost everything through finance, other than the two items in old business and legislation. Ordinance 2021-3 is on third reading and adoption, amending the various rules of council. And the old one was when council is in session, cell phones and other electrical devices should not be used and shall be turned off and put on silent or vibrate mode to avoid disruptions. And the new one is, it's being replaced by when council is in session, cell phones and other electronic devices shall be put on silent or vibrate mode to avoid disruption.
Make a recommendation that council adopt.
Second.
To recommend that council adopt, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
yes,
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
And then the other item from old business is ordinance 2021-4 for third reading and adoption, adopting the updated City of Brooklyn 2020 master plan, providing for the periodic review thereof, and providing for the integration of the physical development of the city therewith. Any comments or questions?
Recommend that council adopt.
second,
To recommend that council adopt, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
yes,
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Mayor, do you have anything else to add or?
Sure. I have a couple things. We issued a request for RFPs for zoning code. Those were due on the 5th. We received 5 responses. So Jeremy, Kevin Butler, and Dave Colsar will be the selection committee. They'll review those, score them, and bring in people to interview as they feel appropriate. The range in those fees were anywhere between 50 and 130,000. So very dramatic. The bulk of them were between 90 and 100 though, 3 of them. So they're going to go through those and hopefully we'll have a selected group in the next month or so. It will be a 12 to 14 month process though. So expect a long-term planning with this. A lot of the cost is is really that public input, having those sessions, and then, looking at the best quality code that we can produce, going through that process. And if Jeremy wants to add anything, he can. As far as the master plan approval, assuming that's going to pass tonight, one of the requirements out of there is to organize a committee. So there's a checks and balance on the administration and city council that we're moving forward with some of the recommendations. So that will be a next step. Jeremy will be the lead in that, in organizing a committee. We can push out any information as far as how he or I decide that moving forward would be the best effective way. If you have any suggestions, don't hesitate to reach out to him. And that's it as far as other matters. If you feel comfortable with the CMR project, I could tell, it looks like Jason's still on, for him to jump off at this time if there are no other questions. As far as the particular contract, if you have anything for Kevin Butler. That's it.
And council members, I'll just add that we're going to be bringing additional CMR related legislation to you when we get past the pre-construction activities phase. And that will be the overall contract for the remainder of the work. So expect that legislation to be forthcoming shortly. I can also add, I'm sorry, Councilwoman Pucci, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead. My question doesn't have anything to do with the CMR, so you finish.
Oh, I was going to actually talk about something else. Just to fill the gap, I sent out as you all know, somewhat lawyerly memo recently on something as exciting, at least exciting to me, as the differences between ordinances and resolutions. The reason I did that, really the impetus for that is not so much that it matters that much to legislation in Brooklyn. The charter in Brooklyn requires that all legislation, unless council intervenes with special motions, all legislation be read 3 times, regardless of whether that legislation is in ordinance or resolution form. And so practically speaking, it doesn't much matter whether we style legislation as ordinances or resolutions. But the reason we feel it's appropriate to start dividing those a little more finely is because we want to avoid situations where our codifier, Walter Drain, which uses the online platform provided by American Legal Publishing, sometimes takes legislation that we've adopted and decides for itself to codify that legislation when candidly we never intended for that legislation to be codified, be placed in the codified ordinances. We want to be a little finer about what we send to Walter Drain for codification. And it helps us if we title things that are meant for the codified ordinances as ordinances, and things that are not meant for the codified ordinances, generally speaking, as resolutions. So that explains really the distinction, and I wanted to give you the comfort of knowing that it is from a legal standpoint really a distinction without much of a difference, particularly under our charter. But nevertheless, for our own internal housekeeping, it makes more sense to do things by resolution more often than by ordinance, because we're not that frequently changing the code. I hope that explains the reason you got that out of the blue. We've been having internal discussions lately over our processes, and it's really meant to help us.
I'd add to that, example of that tonight is this petty cash. We have a codified ordinances that is from 2 times ago. That's codified, so that's what the public sees. When in actuality, it's been updated twice to what you see currently. So really, the public understands what we're working with if something's codified and old. You'll see some changes coming up. There's certain things that Tom wanted to codify as far as policies go, and at the time Walter Drain didn't really want to codify it, and then Another fix is to ensure that when they're codifying it, some of it says exhibit attached. Well, you're not going to see that exhibit if you're going on to American Legal. So to build that language right into the ordinance. So you'll see cleanup stuff every meeting. We're going to do it slowly and just make sure our process from here on out is clean and we don't see any of those things that we miss in the future.
May I be recognized?
Go ahead,
Thank you.
please.
I just have a quick question for the mayor. Is it too premature to ask what the process will look like as far as updating the zoning code? I'm assuming there's going to be a committee.
Jeremy, do you have anything to say on that? I mean, at this point, it's too premature for me to say, but you have been through it in another city, so maybe you could shed some light on that.
Yeah, we haven't read all the responses, but typically you would form some sort of steering committee. So that'd be made up of a mixture of representatives of council, the administration, and the public, maybe some business folks if that's appropriate as well. And that group would guide the process, probably very similar to what was done with the master plan. So each firm has its own unique methodology they use to guide that public input process. So that's one of the criteria that we'll be evaluating when we read the proposals.
Okay, thank you. I do think a steering committee is very important. I think that's how we're going to get the best outcome.
I agree 100%. So the steering committees will happen. And it's, I mean, from my perspective, really critically important to have the best outreach that we can to the public, because ultimately they're the ones that have to vote to adopt it. So yeah, it's one of the critical criteria that we'll be evaluating.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? We'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
To adjourn, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Bellbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
It's 7 o'clock. Are you ready for the regular council meeting or do you need a break?
Everybody good?
I'm fine.
Okay.
All righty. Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Brooklyn City Council to order. Mary Jo, can you do the roll, please?
Ron Van Kirk,
Here.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Here.
Andy Selhertz,
Here.
Kathy Pucci,
Here.
Mary Bellbeer,
Here.
Kevin Tansky,
Here.
Sue Grodick.
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll have an opening by Councilwoman Sue Grodick. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Tonight, I would like to offer a moment of silence. Our country is very close to losing 500,000 people to COVID-19. And I would just think it's appropriate to offer a moment of silence to those who have lost their lives to the virus, and also their families who were not able to be by their side because of the requirements of the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you. First item we're going to do is approval of the minutes of the council meeting of January 25th, 2021. Does anybody have any corrections, adjustments?
To approve.
Second.
To approve the minutes, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes,
Kathy Pucci,
yes,
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
yes.
thank you. Since the public sessions are now virtual, Mary Jo, do we have anybody that has submitted any questions by email or any comments to be read at this meeting?
No, I've received nothing.
All righty, thank you. Next, we'll have reports of the committees, commissions, and boards. The first one is the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee actually met at 6:15 this evening, covered a number of items. First one's Ordinance 2021-7. It's on first reading, repealing Section 13505 of the Brooklyn Codified Ordinances, petty cash funds. This is more of a housekeeping issue. The second item is Resolution 2021-1. It's first reading and administration's requesting suspension and adoption. It's authorizing all actions necessary to accept Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council, better known as NOPEC 2021 Energy Community Grant. That is a grant that we've applied for every year in the past few years, and it should be applied on projects within the city. Third item is Resolution 2021-2, first reading. It's authorizing the mayor enter into agreement with Simvey LLC to provide information technology professional services to City of Brooklyn, and a cost per month for a monthly service fee is $7,916.50. This replaces the contract that we had before with Bailey, and there was an interim company in the meantime. There's a slight increase between this cost and the cost that with Bailey. It goes in two separate contracts between phone and technology services. The next item that was on the Finance Committee was Resolution 2021-3. It's first reading, and the administration's requesting suspension and adoption. It's authorizing the mayor of the City of Brooklyn, Ohio to enter into a contract with AFSCME OSHA Ohio Council 8, AFL-CIO Local 3218, clerical employees for a 3-year term beginning 2021. And the Finance Committee recommended approval of that. Next item is Resolution 2021-4. It's on first reading, and administration's also requesting suspension and adoption. Approving selection of Panzica Construction Company as best value construction manager at risk, and authorizing contract for pre-construction services and declaring an emergency. The Finance Committee approved this measure and moved it forward. Finance Committee, the next item they covered was Resolution 2021-5. It's on first reading only. It's adopting the City of Brooklyn's petty cash funds and change till policy. That goes hand in hand with one of the previous items, which was Ordinance 2021-7. And then the final item for the Finance Committee covered was Resolution 2021-6. It was first reading and request suspension and adoption by the administration, authorizing the city to effectuate an agreement between Speedway LLC and Brooklyn Community Improvement Corporation for the purchase of certain real property known as 8519 Memphis Avenue, permanent parcels number 432-21-04-015-016-017 and -018, and declaring an emergency. This is actually the Speedway property at the corner of Rodone and Memphis. And that was also recommended for approval by the Finance Committee. Finance Committee meets every other Monday before council meetings at 6:15, and the public's welcome to attend virtually and hopefully someday in the future in person. The next committee that met was the Committee of Whole. They met exactly after the Finance Committee. There were only 2 items that were worked on. The first one is Ordinance 2021-3, reading and adoption, amending various rules of the council, codified pursuant to section 121.01 of the codified ordinance of the city of Brooklyn. And that is where the phrase, "where council is in session, cell phones and other electrical devices shall not be used and shall be turned off or put on silent or vibrate mode to avoid disruption." It will be replaced by "when council is in session, cell phones and other electrical devices shall be put on silent or vibrate mode to avoid disruption." The committee on whole approved this measure and forwarded it to council. And the last item on committee at whole was Ordinance 2021-4. It's for 3rd reading and adoption. Adopting the updated City of Brooklyn 2020 Master Plan, providing the periodic review thereof, and providing for the integration of the physical development of the city therewith, as it was discussed and approved by the Committee of a Whole and forwarded to City Council. That was the meeting of the Committee of Whole. Next report is the Recreation Board, and there's Councilman Tansky.
Thank you. The Brooklyn Youth Volleyball Spring League 2021 is for any Brooklyn resident or student attending a school in the city limits for grades 3 to 4 and grades 5 to 6 co-ed. Resident fee is $60. Registration is from February 1st through February 21st. Practices begin the week of March 8th and games will be played on Saturdays beginning the week of March 27th and will include home and away games. Players will receive a team jersey and there will be a postseason tournament. Volunteer coaches are needed for all leagues. Please let us know at registration if interested. Brooklyn Recreation Spring Soccer registration begins February 8th and will run through March 1st. Resident fee $60, non-resident fee $65. Spring soccer will include ages 3 to 4 co-ed clinical, ages 5 to 6 co-ed, ages 7 to 8 co-ed. Season dates April 10th through May 22nd. Saturdays from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Ages 11U, 13U, and 15U, boys and girls. Practices begin the week of March 15th. Games begin April 10th. Our leagues will follow local health department COVID-19 safety guidelines. Registration online, brc.activityreg.com. If anyone is interested in coaching, please let us know at time of registration. Please contact the Brooklyn Rec Center at 216-351-5334 for any questions, or visit recinfo@brooklynohio.gov. The next Recreation Board meeting for the month of February will be canceled. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next report we'll have will be the Domestic Abuse Commission. That'll be by Councilwoman Ryan Shockey.
Thank you. February is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. Dating violence is more common than people think, especially among teens and young adults. 1 in 3 teens in the US will experience physical, sexual, or emotional abuse by someone they are in a relationship with before they become an adult. The solution? Start talking and building community support. We must come together and support those affected by unhealthy relationships and abuse. Isolation is one of the strongest tactics someone uses. We must let these people know they are not alone. Educating teenagers before they start dating about essentials of healthy relationships, including respect, honesty, and communication, as well as the warning signs, such as extreme jealousy, checking your phone or social media accounts without your permission, and isolating you from friends and family, is important so they understand healthy relationships as they begin to date. I hope you join me tomorrow by wearing orange to recognize Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. You can post your photo with the hashtag #KnowYourWorth on social media. That ends my report.
Thank you. Next report we'll have is to legislative update, and it's by Councilwoman Bellbeer.
Thank you. I wanted to comment on Ohio House Bill 6, the energy law at the heart of the massive bribery scandal involving $60 million in First Energy money. House Bill 6 is still the law, although many want it rescinded because of the bribery involved in its passage. After negotiations with Ohio Attorney General David Yost, First Energy has agreed to halt the controversial decoupling policy that allows them to collect hundreds of millions of dollars more from Ohio ratepayers in exchange for Attorney General Yost dropping a legal challenge to the policy. This agreement takes away one of the major provisions of House Bill 6. Decoupling would have allowed First Energy to charge ratepayers an estimated $102 million extra this year alone in order to guarantee the company a yearly revenue of $978 million. That is the amount First Energy raised in the year 2018, in which the utility made more money than in other recent years. While the decoupling provision still remains a part of state law, First Energy has agreed to file with the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio to set the decoupling rate at 0. In exchange, Attorney General Yost has agreed to drop his legal motion challenging the provision and will pause his other challenges to House Bill 6 until the end of the criminal cases against ex-Ohio State Speaker Larry Householder and allies who have allegedly ran the bribery scheme. The utility began collecting decoupling money a year ago. Yost said that the agreement with the First Energy doesn't affect the money already taken in, though he said his office still has the right to litigate in court to obtain a refund for consumers. Yost, along with several cities in Ohio, have filed suit against First Energy and Energy Harbor, a former subsidiary that runs 2 nuclear power plants, given a $1 billion plus bailout under House Bill 6. In December, a Franklin County judge issued an injunction blocking the collection of the bailout fee, which ranges from 85 cents per month for residential customers to $2,400 per month for large industrial plants. Stopping these decoupling charges and bailout fees will save Ohioans an estimated $2 billion. It may only amount to a few dollars a month to the average resident, but it can really, really mount up. The former Speaker of the House, Larry Householder, and 4 allies were charged in the bribery scheme. Householder is still serving in legislature while awaiting trial along with 2 of his allies. 2 other allies have pleaded guilty. Many feel the whole House Bill 6 should be eliminated by the legislature because of the taint involved in this passage. And that completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have a report of the Board of Zoning Appeals, and that'll be by Commissioner Kolsar.
Thank you, Mr. Selhertz. On Thursday, February 18th, the Board of Zoning Appeals will be meeting at 6 p.m. via Zoom. The following requests will be heard. The first from Robert Donegan Jr., attorney for DMAC Realty LLC. This is for a variance to the paving requirement for a parking area at 7332 Associate Avenue. The next request is from Ohio Machinery Company for a 1-foot height variance to the maximum allowable height of 6 feet. This is for an ornamental fence at 9500 Brook Park Road. And that completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have a report of the Planning Commission, and that'll be by Councilwoman Grodick.
Thank you. The Planning Commission met on February 3rd and approved a request from Cleveland American LLC and Holdings for a lot split consolidation at 10575 Memphis Avenue. Our meetings for the next 3 months will be moved to Thursdays, They will continue to begin at 6 p.m. So our next meeting will be Thursday, March 4th. At this time, it is planned to be a virtual meeting. And just to remind everyone that if you see something on the agenda that you would like to be able to have your opinion or your view heard, you can contact Dawn Neal at dneal@brooklynohio.gov to be a part of the meeting. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. And we'll have the school board liaison report by Councilwoman Mary Bellbeer.
Thank you. Brooklyn schools are offering a newly created digital learning academy. It is an innovative hybrid learning option. It features both in-person and remote learning formats. It's staffed entirely by Brooklyn City Schools certified staff and educators. The Brooklyn Digital Learning Academy will provide students with the district's engaging curriculum and programming opportunities while meeting their unique learning needs. The Brooklyn City Schools ask all that are interested to make the commitment to the Brooklyn Digital Learning Academy for a full semester. They will follow a format that will be classes in the morning from 8 till 11, afternoon sessions from 12 to 3. There will be an application process for the program that needs to be entered. They will have hybrid learning options. It'll be in-person half day and remote the other half. Applications can be found online. They're available online at www.brooklyn.k12.ohio.us. Also, the school employees will be getting the vaccine scheduled for February 17th and March 10th. And the next Brooklyn School Board meeting will be February 16th at 6 p.m. Thank you, and that completes my report.
Thank you. We will now have reports of the council. This evening, we will begin with Meg Ryan Shockey.
Thank you. Especially in these current times, as we're in the middle of Ohio's cold winter and coming up on a year into the pandemic, isolation and loneliness are felt by many. Casual phone calls can do more than just lift people's spirits, but can improve their health as well. Metro Health has launched a pilot program called Calls for Hope, which pairs trained volunteers with patients for weekly chats over the phone. Volunteers are trained to keep things positive, report concerning behavior, and steer the patient towards other healthy and safe outlets for socialization. Plans are underway to expand its reach, offer more patients a needed dose of human connection. If you are interested in getting involved as a volunteer for future phases of Calls for Hope, email callsforhope@metrohealth.org with your contact information. Put volunteer in the subject line. If you don't want to get formally involved, I do encourage you to reach out to someone you know who might benefit from a friendly phone call. I know I always like it. And that ends my report.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Mrs. Pucci.
Thank you. Good evening. I have a report from the Brooklyn Community Improvement Corporation's annual meeting, which took place Monday, February 21st at 5:30 via Zoom. We approved the minutes of our most previous meeting, which was on August 17th, 2020. We had election of trustees. Mr. John Wittine was reelected to the board. We had election of officers for 2021. Mayor Gallagher was elected chair. I was elected secretary, and Mr. Wittine was elected treasurer. We also approved the 2020 financial statement, which is submitted to the Auditor of State. And then we also approved and recommended that council approve the legislation that's on our agenda this evening for the purchase agreement of 8519 Memphis Avenue, which is the former Speedway training property at Memphis and Rodone. And Mayor, thank you for the update on the land bank. That was one of the questions I had, was whether or not we had any hope of being provided funding from the land bank to demolish the structure that's there. So that's good news that it looks like we will be in the running for funding from the land bank. And that completes my report. Or I'm sorry, that completes my report of the Community Improvement Corporation. Sadly, this past week, our family lost a loved one who was originally from Brooklyn, Mariano Pacetti. Mariano was a member of the class of 71. He was a very talented and gifted musician who, in addition to performing, he also spent many years teaching and inspiring young people. Mariano had a big heart and a big smile for everyone he encountered. He was a beautiful soul who truly made the world a better place. For anyone who's interested, there have been numerous tributes on social media. Please keep Mariano's wife, Terry, his daughter, Christina, his brothers and their families, and his in-laws in your thoughts and prayers. And that completes my council report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Spucci. Next, we'll have Mrs. Belbeer.
Thank you. My condolences also to the Panchetti family. I've only heard of him. I never met him, but I heard he was a wonderful person and quite a character. So I will keep him in my prayers. I would also like to acknowledge this week the passing of a Cleveland media legend, Les Levine, who died last week. He was the self-proclaimed voice of truth and reason. He was one of the top radio personnel in Cleveland. So many Cleveland sports announcers have described him as brilliant and witty. Les broadcast over 2,500 sporting events in 39 states. His signature show, More Sports and Les Levine, has been a fixture on radio and television in Northeast Ohio since 1991. So many that followed Cleveland sports admired him and they trusted his sports knowledge, whether it was knowledge about the Cavs, Browns, or even Cleveland State basketball. Les was a personal friend and he had an infectious smile whenever he walked into a room and was a wonderful, wonderful person. And I'm so honored to have to get to know him. So rest in peace, Mr. Les Levine. I'd also like to throw out a special thanks to all those who have been helping in this frigid, cold weather with food distributions. One of the distributions is our own, Brooklyn branch of the library here. They're in conjunction with the Cleveland Food Bank, and they're helping out distributing food. And constantly, the Brooklyn Acres, they are so dedicated there with helping people and making sure that there's milk, bread, whatever you need. You can always count on them. Another thing coming up with this frigid weather these next couple days and into next week, one thing I'm always afraid of is, but it hasn't happened here yet, my pipes freezing. I'm always thinking about that. The single digit temperatures and negative wind chills that come with winter weather causes us all kinds of problems, especially plumbing issues. And I've come up with some research and come up with some guidelines to prevent frozen pipes during cold spells that, will save you time and money. It's a good idea to let a small stream of water flow from a faucet, running water through the pipes, even a trickle. These are the pipes, it depends on how old your house. Some homes are quite old and the pipes are on the outside there, on the outside of the of your building there. It helps prevent from freezing. It's a good idea, to keep doors and windows that are near plumbing tightly closed. It's a good idea also to open up the kitchen and bathroom cabinets to allow warmer air to circulate throughout the plumbing, especially if your sinks are on the exterior walls. If you plan on being away from home during the cold weather, there's a lot of people that are snowbirds, and it's a good idea to keep your heat on to at least the temperature of 55, or turn off your main water valve and drain the outside faucets. If you do have a frozen pipe, the most important thing to do is to address it as soon as possible. If a frozen pipe ruptures, it can lead to significant damage and be costly in repair. Make sure you know where your main valve is located and label it. I've made that mistake where I was looking for the water valve and I didn't have it labeled. So it's a good idea to label it. And especially now, like I said, being very cold, it's also a good idea to look in on our neighbors, especially if they're elderly. I know my driveway right now is extremely icy, And although I can still get my garbage, my garbage and things, that my neighbors are quite young here, but people have elderly neighbors, and it wouldn't be a bad idea if you can give them a call and see if they need any help, taking out their garbage and then bringing back the tubs back, And lastly, there's some COVID testing that's going on. The Cuyahoga County Board of Health is in partnership with Metro Health and other community and faith-based organizations. They are conducting COVID testings in local neighborhoods. You need to have advanced registration is required, and there is a limit on the amount of people who can be tested at each site. Testing times may be different based on where you go for your test. So if you're interested in COVID testing, you can call the number 216-957-3939 from 8 to 4, Tuesday through Friday, if you need help. Scheduling some of the sites are going to be, tomorrow, Tuesday, February 9th at the Cuyahoga County Fairgrounds. That's on Bagley Road. They're having the testing from 1 to 4. I believe you can walk up or you can drive up too, but they require masks. February 10th, Shaker Heights Fire Department on Chagrin Boulevard. They're doing it from 9 to 12. Tuesday, February 16th, the fairgrounds again, 1 to 4. Shaker Heights, February 17th, 12 to 3. And February 23rd, Cuyahoga County Fairgrounds. There are other places too that will do the COVID testing, such as the Cleveland Clinic, CVS Pharmacy, Metro Health Hospital, Rite Aid, and Walgreens. And that pretty much completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Councilman Tansky.
Thank you. Good evening. I hope everyone is doing well during this ongoing pandemic, as we as a community and country to work through these challenging times. Please continue to follow state guidelines and recommendations from our state health department. Again, I want to thank Mr. Butler on finalizing AFSCME's Local 3218's contract. Also want to thank our service department keeping our streets salted through these frigid temperatures. I'd like to echo what Councilwoman Balbier said about these outside water lines that face the outside wall. Very, very important, because I know a lot of people have gone through frozen lines. They don't realize if that outside wall is not insulated and that kitchen cabinet door is closed or being restricted from heat, especially if we fall below that 32 mark heading to 0, that these lines will freeze. So it was a very good comment that Councilwoman Balbier brought up. Any outside water lines in the house, leave those doors open and let that heat get to those pipes. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Councilwoman Grodick.
Thank you. We like to designate our months and our days around here. Sometimes they're whimsical. Mary Jo let us know that over the weekend it was Eat Ice Cream for Breakfast Day. Some of them are very important, like acknowledging Black History Month. February is also Women's Heart Health Month. And although right now we're consumed with COVID-19 news, the fact is that cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer in America and the #1 killer of women. It's really important, especially as women, that we learn the signs of heart attack or stroke. They may not be the same as a male. We should know our health risk factors. And most importantly, no matter what our age is, we can learn some healthy living tips. We want to keep our hearts as healthy as possible. There is a website set up specifically for women's heart health called goredforwomen.org. And there are lots of interesting tips that you can use there. My brother is a paramedic and he specializes in health care, in heart care. And he is very quick to say that it's difficult to find women survivors of heart attacks because we typically seem to ignore the warning signs. until it is too late to be on the survivor side. Too many of us are the statistic of not making it. So don't be on that side of the statistic, and know the warning signs. And most importantly, learn how you can take care of your heart now. I would just like to send a personal thank you to everyone, but especially Mr. Butler, Mr. Rowan, and the mayor for working so hard on the master plan and getting things started. I think it's going to be a really exciting time to be part of council and to be involved in our community and watch that master plan take life. We already see a lot of legislation that will be pushing forward for the next several years already. And I'm really excited to get started and to see all of that happening. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Mr. Van Kirk.
Thank you, Mr. Selhurst. I just want to thank you, Andy, for taking over for me. It's been a pretty hectic weekend, so I appreciate you stepping in.
All righty, and I have a few comments. First one, just 100% agree with Mrs. Pucci wholeheartedly with regards to Mariano Pacetti. He was 2 years ahead of me in high school. I actually met him through the music department. Super, super guy, always had a smile on his face. Just a joy to be with, and true professional, went on in a music career. And as Mrs. Pucci said, he also was an educator of music, and he just truly loved his profession. So he was one that if you met him, he would make sure that there was a lasting impression. It was always just good. So it's sad. I hate to say that. A little bit on the business side, I've been promising that we're going to have an audit report from Real Term Energy. The ball's still in First Energy's court. We talked with Kerry Wilson, Mr. Raguse and I did. We're hopefully thinking of the 22nd. We could have done one today, but there was a couple still items dragging on. And I apologize for that. It's out of our control, but it's better to just get one report instead of have one, and then a couple weeks later, here's the final report. So just trying to get everything done in one shot. Keep Brooklyn Beautiful, we talked about. We have scheduled all the list of cleanups. They're up on the website. If you look in, you can look on volunteer.kav.org. If you put in volunteer opportunities and put in the zip code 44144, you will find volunteer opportunities from April through October. We will probably put some more in. We're working with the ROTC group from Rhodes High School. We're going to be attacking 480 and exit ramps, exit entrance ramps. And we also have another project we're starting to get the works on that might come up in October, which might be really nice. And on the lighter side, at the end of this meeting, if anybody in the audience is still hungry, Music Boosters are having another fundraiser at Canes from 4 to 10 p.m. Mention that you're there because of the fundraiser, and Canes will donate 15% of the sales to boosters. And that concludes my report. Next, we'll have a report from the Mayor Gallagher.
Thank you, Mr. Selhurst. I have two things I'd like to discuss tonight. The first is a proclamation to honor and recognize Officer Anthony Pesota for his service to the city of Brooklyn. Anthony began his career as a police officer at the city of Brooklyn on September 21st, 2003, and retired on January 22nd, 2021. He previously worked with the Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Office from September 98 to September 2003. Tony started in patrol while assigned his passion to the Traffic Bureau in 2005, where his primary duties was to enforce traffic laws and represent the department as a motorcycle officer. Throughout his career, Tony issued thousands of traffic citations and wrote hundreds of motor vehicle accident reports and faithfully escorted funeral processions of fallen police officers, Brooklyn residents, and led several Memorial Day parades. Tony received a commendation for distinguished service on February 26, 2008 for safely disarming a male with a knife during a disturbance call at Staples. He was the first officer to encounter and neutralize an active homicidal male at Cracker Barrel Restaurant on April 12, 2012. He is commended for his bravery during this incident in January 2nd, 2016 for maintaining a perimeter while a person fired shots from inside a house on Archmere Avenue. Tony took on many extra duties over his course of his career here, leading the department's selection, acquisition, and upfitting of all of the police vehicles, and training fellow officers in radar, LiDAR, and TASER certifications. He has received many notes of gratitude and recognition from his supervisors and the community over the years, and I'd like to thank him for all he's done for the city of Brooklyn. Although he couldn't be on here, Tony was a great addition to our department. If you can recall, he was one of the officers that was dragged by a car. Unfortunately, that caused a lot of injuries that he couldn't come back. So, although his career here was cut short, he was a vital part of our police force. And unfortunately, many of you probably met him if you got a traffic ticket, because he did write a lot of traffic tickets. But we'll miss him here at the city of Brooklyn. Second news is I've been asked to announce the Brooklyn Hometown Military banner will resume again this year. If you recall, banners were put up last year. I think that they're a great addition to the city. And so we're going to resume that again. Mary Jo will put something out on social media, and Joe will put something on the website. But just to remind everybody, each banner will feature a picture of a hometown hero, their name, their branch of service, and the name of the sponsor. The banner's 30 by 60, and they'll be throughout the city in Knight Commons, Veterans Memorial Park, and they'll be up from Memorial Day to Labor Day. The banner's cost is $130 if it's the first time. If you were just storing for the year, it is $25 for the year. In order to successfully do this, we'll have an application that you'll need to fill out that will be on the attachment for the website and social media. And we'll need a digital photo of the hometown hero in their military uniform. They'll have to be a JPEG or PNG file that is 600 DPIs. And applications must be postmarked by March 16th, 2021. And if you have any questions, please call our service director, John Verba, at 216-635-4219, or email him at jverba@brooklynohio.gov. And again, all of this will be posted. Again, I like to say what an incredible job that our service department did printing these, and what a nice addition this is. We don't know if we'll have Memorial Day this year with COVID, but this can be something that we can recognize and continue to build up. If you've been to other cities, each year it continues to grow, and hopefully we'll be surrounded in our city in a couple of years. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Tonight we have no reports from directors. So the next item is notifications. We have a notification of $100,000 from the state of Ohio for the City of Brooklyn Trail Project. Merrick, could you fill us in a little bit on this? Sorry.
I'm sorry, I walked away. What am I filling you in on?
The notification on the trail project, $100,000.
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. As far as the capital money goes, this trail project was for Memorial Park, or for the Kingdom. This was a request for a much larger capital contribution than we received. So at this point, we're just going through the process. What we're going to do is try to create a plan with $100,000 and maybe fix the road going down there. If any of you have been on the hike with Big Creek Connects, there are big holes going down the pathway. So at the very least, fix that. You know, our Boy Scouts use that space a lot. We just want to make sure it's safe and that the fire department can access it at this point, at the very least with the $100,000. But we do have to come up with a concrete plan if we are going to add trails down there, and this will be a good starting point. The topography is obviously dips a lot. There's a lot of water retention down there and wetlands. So in order for this to even work out, we'd have to know a little bit more. So this will help with that moving forward.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to legislation with old business. First is Ordinance 2021-3. It's up for third reading and adoption. It's amending various rules of council codified pursuant to section 121.01 of the codified ordinance of the city of Brooklyn. The change in Rule 5 is, the old one was, when council is in session, cell phones and other electrical devices shall not be used and they shall be turned off or put on silent or vibrate mode to avoid disruption. It's being replaced by, when council is in session, cell phones and other electronic devices shall be put on silent or vibrate mode to avoid disruption. There any
Move to
questions?
adopt.
Second,
To adopt, excuse me, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Next item in old business is ordinance 2021-4. It's on third reading and up for adoption, adopting the updated City of Brooklyn 2020 master plan, providing for the periodic review thereof, and providing for the integration of the physical development of the city therewith.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Second.
To adopt, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
We're into new business for legislation. First is ordinance 2021-7. It is just on first reading, repealing section 135.05 of the Brooklyn Codified Ordinances, petty cash funds. Next, we have resolution 2021-1. It's on first reading and administration's requesting suspension and adoption, authorizing all actions necessary to accept Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council, known as NOPEC 2021 Energized Community Grant.
Introduced by all, suspend the rules.
Second,
Second.
To suspend the rules, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
To adopt, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Next item is resolution 2021-2. It is on first reading, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Simvey LLC to provide information technology professional services to the city of Brooklyn. Next item is resolution 2021-3. It is on first reading and administration's requesting suspension and adoption. It's authorizing the mayor of the city of Brooklyn, Ohio to enter into a contract with AFSCME, Ohio Council 8, AFL-CIO Local 3218 clerical employees for a 3-year term beginning 2021.
Introduced by all, suspend the rules.
Second,
To suspend the rules, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
To adopt, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Next item is resolution 2021-4. first reading and administration's requesting suspension and adoption, is approving selection of Panzica Construction Company as best value construction manager and risk, and authorizing contract for pre-construction services and declaring an emergency.
Introduce by all, suspend the rules.
Second,
To suspend the rules, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
yes,
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
To adopt, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
yes,
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Next item we have is Resolution 2021-5. It is just on first reading, adopting the City of Brooklyn petty cash funds and change tills policy. And the last item in new business we have is Resolution 2021-6. It is on first reading and administration's requesting suspension and adoption, authorizing the city to effectuate an agreement between Speedway LLC and Brooklyn Community Improvement Corporation for the purchase of certain real property known as 8519 Memphis Avenue, permanent parcel numbers 432-21-014, -015, -016, -017, and -018, and declaring an emergency.
Introduce by all, suspend the rules.
second,
To suspend the rules, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
yes,
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
To adopt, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Does anybody else have any other items that need to be discussed or addressed?
May I be recognized?
Go ahead, please.
I would just like to thank Officer Pesota for his service to our community and wish him all the best.
Anybody else?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second,
To adjourn, Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you. Have a
Mary
good
Jo.
evening, everyone.